Yeah. Hilarious. All right, let's see how bad things are. How we're doing. That's almost as bad as I thought it was going to be, but not as bad. So I feel like that's progress. How's everybody doing? Good to see the 3 to 6 of you. I'm going to start with a couple kind of survey questions, and this is really just to test the rig. I feel like I'm at the intersection point where I'm either going to turn into a blogger, God forbid, or a weatherman. Those are your two choices from the rig I have right now. Let me point out that my computer is about 178,000 degrees right now because it's trying to pull a boat up a hill in terms of the load that I have around it now. So apologies if I do cut out on you. Start with whether or not you can read that. I have no idea what the quality of your signal is. So if you can see me, that's good. Thank you, Adrian. But just let me know, can you read that? That would actually be the first worthwhile check-in point, is to ask whether or not you can read words at that size on the text. The reflection in the background, it's backwards to me, so it looks like I'm reading Greek right now. Yep, so somebody says yes, they can see it. Got a couple more, good there. So I'm not going to do a lot of actual class content, but I'll run you through some slides and keep quizzing you on the viability of this rig, because at least the first semester of stereo surround sound when emails come in, that's fun. The first section of summer is definitely going to be online. So I don't know if that's an announcement or if you already knew that, but summer 1 is definitely fully online. I have to assume that summer 2 is also going to be mostly online. So I want to see how well this would work if I have to do this completely. So if you can read that, excellent, good. We're off to a good start. Also seeing if I can simultaneously run a PowerPoint while I have this going on. Still on your screen, excellent. This is mostly good news. How you guys doing? How you holding up? Oh, that's bad news. I'm still here, but the lighting is going to get weird, so bear with me. want it to be the PowerPoint, please. Still nothing on that screen. I have exactly what I want you to see in front of me, and I have to try to reverse that. Like that. Oh, and we're back, and the lights are up. So this is the next kind of check-in question. That's pretty small. Just check in as to whether or not you could read that. So if I didn't narrate that screen that you're looking at now, would you be able to make that out? Is that legible text for you? Yeah, we can have a little chat about the ECC president situation. There's things I'm allowed to say, and there's things I'm not allowed to say, but I can give you a little bit of what my take is on that particular situation. I'm getting a couple of yeses. I'm impressed. I didn't think the quality streaming would be good enough for you to be able to read text that small. So even better. All the technical difficulties, that's so far the most impressive. Let me talk you through the quote, and I'm going to offer extra credit. So here comes an extra credit opportunity based on this quote right now. I'll read it. I want you to think about the source that it may have come from. If you already know the source, if you know the punchline to this, you'll still get the extra credit. So if you want to participate right now, see if you could correctly guess the source of this quote. And you can be as vague or general as you want, or as specific. So the quote says, in case anybody can't read it, critical thinking is not a singular skill. It's a constant state of metacognition, key vocab term. It's a constant state of metacognition, measuring evidence and recognizing when to defer to experts. It's analyzing this tweet's substance, motivations, credibility, and source, not just reading it. I'll give you a few seconds to start sending in some possible theories. You can tell by the lack of capitalization that it's probably tweet form, so it fits the bill there, and it's right in there as well. So if you could guess the source of this tweet, it could be a person, a nonprofit organization, a movement. See if you want to try to send in a possible guess as to who you think this quote came from. Obviously, I picked it because I love it, and it's kind of the moral of this course. No, I wish it was not me. What I hate about this quote is it says everything about this class that I want you to know about this class, but better than I would. It does a better job of explaining everything that I like about teaching this particular class. So no, it was definitely not me. Yeah, somebody already knew. That's a Steakums quote. And somewhere in another parallel universe, my evil twin is making $400,000 a year writing that kind of content, creating that content for advertisers. So it's not just good for your own critical thinking. If you get good enough at this and you can kind of metacognitively learn how to apply it, something you can actually make $400,000 a year doing. So that is, in fact, part of the main impulse of the course, and I'm glad you can actually see text that small. I'm pleasantly surprised. All right, I'm going to see if I can get a new slide up. And the slides are suddenly now not working. Oh, there's one there. Okay. In terms of the essay, I'm gonna open this up to blue sky question answer, so you can ask me any questions you want about the essays. But I wanted to straighten out the terminology because I'm deliberately trying to double dip. If that wasn't obvious, I'm trying to do as much overlap between my EN 100 and my EN 102 because I'm already 125% overwhelmed, such as it is. So as I talk about the essays, they're similar. They have a lot of overlapping criteria in terms of how I'm going to grade them. But just so you understand the terminology and how I'm describing the essays themselves, EN 100, you've got the longer, more boring title, the qualitative investigation essay. Why are you calling it the qualitative investigation essay, Vote? That's an unnecessarily long and jargon-filled title. Yes, it is. However, I didn't want to call it the research essay because I know you have preconceived notions of what a research essay in high school was. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to push that aside so that you approach this essay with a different topic, with a different mindset, with a different sense of what I'm going to count as research, what I would actually allow. So we're calling it the qualitative investigation essay. So if I say something like the research essay, I'll specifically be talking to the EN 100 crowd. But the reason it's not a research essay is you're not going to be held to high MLA standards or APA standards. I'm more interested in how you explain the sources that you use. So that's really the essence. You could call it the investigative reporter essay, but that doesn't cut out many syllables. So if I mention anything that sounds like that, the investigation essay, the qualitative research essay, specifically that's for EN 100. EN 102 unfairly gets the cooler title, which is the Jurassic Park essay. That's because it has all the same elements of the qualitative investigation essay, but you have to put more focus on the ethical quandary. You have to figure out an ethical paradox or an ethics conflict in whatever subject area you want to talk about. And the movie series Jurassic Park, I mean, from Frankenstein all the way through the most recent awful Jurassic Park movie, all play on the idea: man is meddling in powers he wasn't meant to control, or he's trying to play God. All of that is kind of a classic ethical quandary. You're in the field of genetics, say, you know that your technology could do these amazing, powerful things, and science kind of bumps heads with ethics, where you decide, well, we know we could do it, but should do it. So that quote from Ian Malcolm is kind of a nice encapsulation of the main thing I'm looking for in the EN 102 essay. So they're very similar. I'm going to grade them the exact same way. They're the exact same length. And the Jurassic Park essay just has to make an ethical difficulty the main quandary. I've been totally ignoring the chat section here, so I have no idea if new questions came in. You can send in questions at any moment, and I'll try to keep up with them. You can talk to each other. Unlike the real class, feel free to cross-pollinate and talk over me, because I can't hear you, so it's not as annoying and frustrating as it would be in person. All right, trying for another slide. This is true for both essays. So as you think about how you're going to approach the essay, most of you have a similar frustration with these essays, which is they're too open-ended. If I can write about anything, then that's like having nothing to write about. Anything is overwhelming. It feels like there's too many options. And that's the point of the nothing homework, if you didn't catch the gimmick there. The idea is you can't write about anything. And if you just narrowed it down to choosing to research the concept of nothing, you can actually get a lot of leeway out of something like that. You can get a tremendous amount of data out of that. So whatever your topic is, very open-ended. Part of the challenge is that you spend the time to come up with a topic that's original, it's creative, it's something you want to talk about, and it's not the essay that you wrote in high school. It's part of the challenge. So evaluate and justify. If we were doing the seated version of the class, that means you can use anything as a source. So as an example, if you're writing an essay about life after death, or whether or not you think there's such a thing as life after death, that could be a topic you could use for EN 100, and it could certainly be a topic that you could use for EN 102, the STEM class. So that one works as an example for either essay. Obviously, you could bring in some scientists that talk about consciousness and whether or not the soul exists. But as long as you're explaining how you're using it, you could certainly bring in a source like the Bible or the Quran or the Rig Vedas. Any religious text would be appropriate because it's speaking to the question. The research question is there a you that thinks it's you after you die? You can use anything you want to try to deepen that conversation. In both cases, you're not writing a persuasive essay necessarily. You could, it's an option. But since it's not an essay where you have to prove that you're right, you're exploring. So you can use anything you want that you think would be helpful for your conversation in the essay, as long as you explain why you take the source seriously in this case, and kind of justify how you're using the source in context. So in other words, you can use anything as a source in the essay, as long as you explain why you take it seriously or why you think it helps your conversation, and justify what it's doing in the essay. Let me give you one more example of evaluate and justify from one of my all-time favorite essays. I think this is another example that would work for either EN 100 or the either one of those. So I like essays about psychology. You can tell I'm deliberately pushing you towards topics that I'm interested in or want to learn more about myself. So I've gotten a lot of good essays about how to deal with therapy or how you handle certain psychological illnesses, and an EN 102 essay. There's obvious ways that you could exploit either of those. So it's the essay about depression. They're exploring some causes, but their main focus is a source. That's totally okay, is they explained how they used Dr. Phil as a source. Dr. Phil, I would describe as the confrontational style. He deliberately tries to be the father figure that you didn't have, that gives you boundaries and explains that you're doing, and you have to make sure you understand the responsibilities. So that impulse, that's kind of one therapeutic style. So that would be brought into the essay, and you'd say, I'm going to evaluate Dr. Phil as a source and say that he doesn't seem very smart or very well versed in the literature, and I'm going to justify his use in the essay by saying, look, here's an example of what Dr. Phil does wrong. So that's important because sources still count if they don't confirm your information. You can bring in a source that you think, or the modest proposal essay, both again very similar in construct. And I was hoping some of you would go satirical or deliberately go kind of light, and some of you also went very serious or got kind of emotionally intense, and that's all good. And for this last essay, you can choose whatever tone you want. So it can be very serious, it can feel scholarly and APA style for the EN 102, but it doesn't have to. You can approach it in an optimistic, good-natured way. Since it's first person, your personality can help contribute to your message. And as long as you're consistent, as long as you maintain the tone throughout, if you start very serious and very angry, and the whole essay is kind of a diatribe, it feels like something hostile, that's fine. As long as you keep it and it contributes to the message, that's totally appropriate. So just be conscious of your tone, like choose it deliberately. I want this to be kind of light and funny, or I want this to be concerned because I'm talking about a problem that worries me. As long as you keep the tone consistent, totally appropriate for the essay. So let me give you two possible essay topics based on homeworks. And all I'm really doing is trying to give you essays that worked before. So when I talk through these two examples, he's asking, are we using MLA or APA for the essay? If you're in EN 100, just mention where you got the sources. We have neither the time or the resources to